get rolling with a roll call.
Great. And I wanted to acknowledge Councilmember Fredson will not be in attendance today. So he is absent. Councilmember Sterner has not joined us yet, but I will watch for him. Bento?
Here.
Wolf?
Here.
Zarin?
Right here.
And Lindstrom.
Here.
Thank you.
And now we're up to the reading of the chair's statement, which is that the Met Council chair has determined it's not practical or prudent to conduct in-person meetings in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Accordingly, committee members will participate in this meeting via telephone or other electronic means, and the meeting will be conducted under Minnesota statute section 13D.021. And we encourage everybody to tune in, and if you have any comments, to submit them at public.info@met.state.mn.us, and we will respond accordingly. With that statement being read, we can get into the next item on the agenda, which is the approval of the agenda. So without objection, we can go forward and approve the minutes from September 14th, 2021. Approval of the minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I'd make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second then.
And welcome, Councilmember Sterner.
Thank you.
Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
We have to do a roll call.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Roll call.
My gosh, I was like going back in time. Roll call, please. Thank you.
Acknowledging Councilmember Fredson is absent today, so I will not be calling his name going forward. Sterner?
Aye.
Vento?
Aye.
Wolf?
Aye.
Zarin?
Aye.
And Lindstrom.
Aye.
Thank you.
That takes us to our consent agenda, where we have nothing on the agenda this time around, but 3 items on our non-consent agenda. First one being a new lift station, L32A. This is 2021-261. Mr. Wedin, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and council members. For the record, my name is Tim Wedin. I am Assistant Manager with Interceptor Engineering in Wastewater Planning and Capital Program Delivery. Here to present to you on business item 2021-261, the design of a new lift station L32A, contract number 20P210. Next slide, please. I feel like we've been discussing this project for quite some time. I know that we've shared a lot of information with you over the last several months. So a number of these slides are going to be a reminder of where we have been, where we are, and what our next steps are. So again, lift station L32A, or L32, excuse me, is an existing 50-year-old lift station that's reached the end of its useful life. Condition assessments are indicating that there are structural, mechanical, and electrical deficiencies that are in need of repair and are leading to system failures. We've also experienced backups and odor issues at this facility that need to be addressed. The lift station is almost at full pumping capacity, so we need to expand to meet the current and future needs of the area. Our existing site on the west side of the Mississippi River is simply too small for a new lift station. We do have a new site or a property east of the Mississippi River in the city of Fridley that is adequately sized for a new facility to meet our needs for the future. Next slide, please. As a reminder, the red dot in Brooklyn Park shows where our existing facility is at the end of Mississippi Lane. The orangish dot is our future lift station in the city of Fridley. Again, that is on a parcel, about a 22-acre parcel that we own in the city of Fridley. that will develop on, or we will build on the southern portion of that facility in close proximity to our existing force mains. Next slide, please. Our project schedule, we've been working on this for almost a year now that we've been talking with you about this project in one way, shape, or form, starting with our public hearing that we held back in December of 2020. We've submitted our facility plan to the Pollution Control Agency and had that approved in May of this past year. And we're moving forward with starting design of the lift station project next month, October of 2021. With that design, we're aiming for completion in 2022, beginning construction in 2023, with project construction completed in around 2026. So I think we're still moving forward with that schedule that we've been sharing with you for quite some time. Next slide, please. So what I'm here to discuss with you tonight is our proposals that we've received for designing our facility. With the scope of the project, we believed it was prudent to receive proposals from engineering and architectural firms for design of the facility. We received 8 such proposals and reviewed those proposals from our consultants, looking at 5 different criteria. And those criteria were proposal quality, looking at the completeness and the understanding of the work, the qualifications of each proposer, so their general qualifications, other similar projects that they've done similar to the lift station project that we're proposing for the region or for the area, the experience of their staff. Have their staff worked on projects similar to this? Their service delivery plan. How are they going to make key personnel available to our design staff, to our operation and maintenance staff, so that we can talk with them, work with them on what our final product needs to look like, and work with them on developing that plan for the construction facility. And finally, we also looked at the price of the project or the proposal that they provided. Weighing all 5 of those criteria, and it took us some time to go through and evaluate each of these 8 proposals, we've determined that Brown and Caldwell's proposal was the most advantageous to the council for moving forward with the project. Next slide, please. So our proposed action this evening is that the Metropolitan Council authorizes the regional administrator to negotiate and execute contract 20P210 with Brown and Caldwell to provide services for the design of the new lift station L32A in an amount not to exceed $6,566,704. Next slide, please. With that, I'm available for any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Wedin? Councilmember Sterner.
Yes, thank you. Just had a kind of a question. Usually you'll give us like the range of bids, and this one just showed the winning bid, and I wanted to commend you on having 8 people bidding, because sometimes we get these, we get only one to pick from or only 2. So I thought that was really great, to getting the marketing out to 8 contractors. But can you share like the high bid to the rewarded bid kind of thing?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Council members, I will, what I'll do as a part of the report, I'll work with Susan and I'll work with procurement to get a list of those, the range, what our high bid was, what our low bid was, and I can provide that with you, or provide that to you with the write-up of tonight's business item. Unless somebody from procurement, Jody, okay, so I don't know if you can see the Jody's comment. Because this is an architectural and engineering proposal, that information is non-public.
Okay, all right, well, thank you.
Interesting. I didn't know there was a distinction like that. At least I didn't recall that there was a distinction like that. One thing I appreciate And Mr. Jacoby, would you like to expand upon that?
Yeah, I can just state that the Minnesota Data Practices statute is really clear. For bids, everything is public that we read publicly at the bid opening, the bid amount and the bidder name. And with professional services, the proposer name and the proposer amount. And with architectural and engineering services, the only thing that's public is the name of the proposal and the proposal amounts, but we can certainly get that to you, but to mention all of those in a public meeting is probably not the most appropriate.
Councilmember Sterner, any follow-up to that?
No, that'd be fine, other than it's kind of like treated like royalty, royalty have that same kind of distinction there too, so, but, all right, be good. Yeah, if I could get the information that's on private, that'd be helpful. So thank you.
That sounds great. I'll tell you one thing I appreciate, and this committee has seen at least a few times, and I know I have as well, is each lift station is designed differently, right? Like I've seen photographs of lift stations all around the metropolitan area, and all of them, not all of them, but many of them look dramatically different based on the community or the area that they are located in. So it's not like a Pizza Hut or a McDonald's or something that they all kind of look the same. Each one is architecturally designed differently. All right, thank you, Tim. Appreciate it. And let's see.
Wolf moves approval.
Yeah, thanks. I was wondering if we had actually taken the vote on that. We've got a motion, and do we have a second?
You have a second from Vento?
Thank you. Roll call.
Sterner,
Aye, not used to being first in the alphabet like this, but aye, yes.
you get to be first today.
All right.
Vento,
Aye.
Wolf,
Aye.
Zarin,
Aye.
and Lindstrom.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. That takes us to next item, which is Met Council Environmental Services plat approval. Remus, welcome back.
Thank you, Chair Lindstrom. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, committee members. Again, my name is Chris Remus, and I'm an assistant manager in Interceptor Engineering, wastewater planning, and capital delivery. And today I'd like to present business item 2021-262, Metropolitan Council Environmental Services plat approval. Next slide, please. So just to provide a little project background, the capital improvement program has planned for the expansion and rehabilitation of the regional maintenance facility, also referred to as RMF. Currently, staff representing Interceptor Engineering, ISBU, and maintenance office out of this facility. With this project, space will be provided for air quality staff, the odor lab, and construction services to be located at RMF as well. And per the City of Eagan ordinance, the MCES property that includes the RMF site must be platted and approved by the City Council of Eagan before a building permit will be granted. Next slide, please. So what you're seeing here is simply the plat document that has been prepared for this project. This will be submitted to the city for final approval. Next slide, please. So with that, the proposed action this afternoon is that the Metropolitan Council authorizes its regional administrator to sign the final plat for the Metropolitan Council Environmental Services plat located at 3565 Kennebec Drive, Eagan, Minnesota, 55122. Next slide, please. I can be available for any questions you may have. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any question? Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Remus?
Mr. Chair, Councilmember Wolf.
Councilmember, go ahead, please go ahead.
How did the building get built without having a platted lot to begin with?
As far as Mr. Chair and Councilmember Wolf, as far as I know, it's always been an RLS, a registered land survey. And in speaking with previous project managers, the last building expansion in 2012, it wasn't a requirement of the city. This time when we met with them, it was a requirement for building addition and further expansion.
Any follow-up, Councilmember Wolf?
No follow-up. If nobody else has any questions, I'll move approval.
Any other questions?
Or
Is there a second? Second has been made. Roll call, please.
Oh, I'm sorry, was that Councilmember Sterner that seconded?
Yes, yep.
Thank you. Sterner,
Aye.
Vento,
Aye.
Wolf,
Aye.
Zarin. I see thumbs up from Zarin
Aye.
and Lindstrom.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. And that takes us to our third item on our non-consent agenda, which is MCES process bleach and bisulfite bulk chemicals. Contract 21P122. Leslee, Storlie, welcome.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee members. So I'm Leslee Storlie. I'm a process engineer in our process engineering group in our Operations Support Services division. Today I'm here to talk about business item 2021-265, MCES process bleach and bisulfite bulk chemicals contract 21P122. Next slide, please. So what is bleach used for? Bleach is used for disinfecting our treated wastewater effluent. Essentially, it is there to remove any remaining pathogens that might exist in our wastewater effluent. The disinfection process is a Minnesota Pollution Control Agency required process that happens every year between the months of April through the end of October. Next slide, please. So bisulfite then is a little bit different, but it is used in addition to the disinfection process, but is used to dechlorinate the process. So essentially bisulfite is used to remove any remaining bleach that might be within our wastewater effluent stream so that it is no longer harmful to aquatic life downstream in the receiving water that we discharge the wastewater effluent into. Similarly to bleach, bisulfite as part of the dechlorination process is required as well by the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency during those same exact months from April through the end of October. Next slide, please. So to provide a little bit of background and to kind of remind you all of this bleach and bisulfite contract, this was brought in front of the Environment Committee as part of an approval for an emergency declaration in February of this year. So what happened was the existing chemical supplier, DPC, left the distribution area that we are a part of. They left, basically, essentially sold their chemical equipment and company and left our region. And so at that point, we came to the Environment Committee to get approval for an emergency declaration to allow us to continue to properly disinfect and dechlorinate our wastewater effluent while we went through an appropriate invitation for bid process. So that IFB invitation for bid process has been completed. We've advertised, we've had a public bid opening. The results of that public bid opening were 2 bids were received for bisulfite chemical and 1 bid was received for the bleach chemical. And the lowest responsive and responsible bidder was Hawkins. This is a 2-year contract with 2 optional 1-year extensions. Next slide, please. So with that, the proposed action tonight is that the Metropolitan Council authorizes its regional administrator to award and execute contract 21P122 with Hawkins Incorporated for bleach and bisulfite supply for a total award not to exceed $5 million, $5,400,000. Next slide, please. I think we might have went the other direction. Yeah, perfect. I think it essentially should be the question slide. Yeah, it is. And so with that, I'll open it up to any questions you have. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Storlie? Please go ahead, Councilmember Zirin.
Yeah, I just wanted, there weren't any DBE goals or it was Office of Equal Opportunity consulted on this procurement. Those are some of our standard questions. Anything?
Sure. Mr. Chair and committee members, there were no DBE goals as part of this bid process. That was determined by our procurement department. It's a very specialized chemical process that does not allow for that.
Good question. Other questions? Councilmember Sterner.
Is Hawkins a local company? Or can you tell me where they're out of?
Sure. Mr. Chair, committee members, Hawkins is a local company and the only kind of local company remaining for bleach supply in our region.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
What is the status, if I might ask a question, of chemical companies in general? You talked about how one of the chemical companies sold out and no longer distributes in this region. Is that becoming an issue more than years past? Do you think we're just have a limited amount of companies that are in this general area of chemicals?
Sure, Mr. Chair, committee members. I believe there's a little bit of a challenge currently with chemical supply due to the pandemic. There's transportation challenges, as we've seen throughout many different industries. But as far as people kind of leaving our service area, I don't see that as being a common trend in our industry. I think there's just some unique circumstances potentially with the COVID-19 pandemic, as we've seen with many other items and products and things like that within our region. It's just causing a little bit of a challenge at the moment. But luckily we have Hawkins within our region that is prepared a competitive bid and we can hopefully move forward.
Good point. That question was kind of related to Councilmember Sterner's question about or statement about seeing just one or two companies reply. So it may be partially because it's such a specialized, if we're asking for a real specialized chemical, or maybe there are other factors like the ones you just identified. Do we have if there's no other questions, do we have a comment?
Wolf moves approval.
And a second?
Zirin,
Seconds.
okay, go ahead.
I think I heard Zarin first.
Okay, go ahead.
Councilmember Wolf moves the motion and Councilmember Zirin seconds.
Thank
Roll
you.
call, please.
Sterner,
Aye.
Bento,
Aye.
Wolf,
Aye.
Zarin,
Aye.
Lindstrom.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving right along, that takes us to our information items, where we have 3 items on this portion of the agenda, including an Interceptor program management update from Mr. Tracy and Mr. Gordon. And I think if I didn't tell the committee at the start of the hour, I do need to bail out to another council-related meeting at about 4:45. But Mr. Gordon, Mr. Tracy, take it from here.
Thank you, Chair and committee members. My name is Adam Gordon. I'm the manager of Interceptor Engineering. And this afternoon, I'm here with Bert Tracy, who's the business unit manager for Interceptor Services. And we're presenting an informational item Hopefully we complete it before you take off, Chair, and we'll discuss program management within the Interceptor services. And with this presentation, we'll discuss various programmatic activities that we complete to successfully operate and maintain the Interceptor system. With the next slide. The agenda for this presentation includes the planning, condition assessment, maintenance and scheduling activities, and capital improvement program activities that we perform each year. In addition, we review how well we're doing by assessing performance measures. Next slide. So the first two items on the agenda are program planning and condition assessment. And undeniably, condition assessment drives nearly every aspect of our work within the Interceptor system. And certainly condition assessment and program planning go hand in hand. A potential trap of any utility is that you can't get ahead of problems because you're always responding to problems rather than keeping up on your review of system conditions. We've always had, or we always have completed condition assessments in the Interceptor system. But in 2019, we formalized an internal process for defining when, who, and how condition assessment information is processed for our gravity interceptor pipe. And the follow-up task that we take when we find deficiencies in the system. And next slide. The goal is to assess the conditions of all of our gravity interceptor pipe every 10 years. Because we're being more systematic, we're looking ahead to simplify the task of inspection. And as you can see here in this planning map, we're still filling in the gaps in many locations in the 2021 CCTV program, as shown in red. But in 2023, many of the interceptors to be assessed, and as shown in yellow, are in contiguous runs to help simplify the work in the field. Through the process of inventorying, the previous inspection dates, we have also identified a schedule or a schedule cycle for contracting assessment work through the capital improvements program. And contracting assessment work is necessary where we're not equipped to handle a larger diameter pipe or deep tunnel installations with our existing equipment in the ISBU in-house. Understanding the upcoming goals for both in-house and contracted inspection work allows us to better budget and plan for these activities. Next slide. So with a full implementation and success of the Gravity Interceptor program in 2020, we're turning our sights to other asset classes. And we're on track for 2021 to finalize programs for cathodic protection, meters, siphons, and force mains. And we're looking to complete programs for lift station and odor control in 2022. Next slide.
Adam, can you give me a quick reminder on cathodic?
Good question. I was wondering if somebody would ask that. Not too many people are familiar with that. Cathodic protection is the methods that we use to protect metal pipe. So if we have, say, some ductile iron pipe that we are burying in the ground, sometimes we will use current to actually protect that pipe and put a charge on the pipe that will prevent corrosion of the pipe. You also will find that very common within our transit group. That's how they protect the rails on the LRT as well as many parts of tunnel work.
Fascinating, thank you.
Yeah. On the engineering side of the table, these programs are very important in being able to identify and prioritize new projects for the capital improvements program. Any interceptor rated as a 4, which equates to a poor condition pipe, or greater is entered into the capital improvements program. And with that, in the next slide, I'm going to turn it over to Bert Tracy. He's going to review some of the things that go on in-house. If we still have Bert on the line.
Thank you. Mr. Chair and committee members, apologize for that. As Adam stated earlier, with the full implementation of the Gravity Interceptor program in 2020, the 2020 CCTV footage goal of 308,000 feet was an alignment year based on the information gained through establishing the new program. Staff did an outstanding job of meeting that record high of 308,000 feet for the in-house CCTV inspections. However, by meeting that lofty CCTV goal, that caused ISBU to defer other inspection work that crew would normally have performed. And as you can see on the slide, we implemented 2 new programs, the warranty and small pipe cleaning inspection programs, and staff was also able to complete the list of miscellaneous inspections that were deferred in 2020. So in 2021, we started 2 new programs and got back to our routine and annual inspections of our miscellaneous sites. Next slide, please. The slide on the screen is a graph of total in-house CCTV inspection totals from 2009 to 2021. In 2013, you'll notice the steady 3-year downward trend in CCTV inspections. The staff that completes the CCTV inspections is the same staff that completes the inflow and infiltration, otherwise known as I&I reduction, through inspections and repairs. In 2017, the I&I inspection repairs began to decline and staff was able to refocus on the CCTV inspection program. And in 2018, we replaced an older CCTV inspection truck and equipment. By putting the newer CCTV inspection equipment into service in 2018, we reduced our downtime and repairs, which increased efficiencies and productivity. What the graph does not show is in 2018 and 19 and 2021, staff was able to inspect an average of 180,000 feet per year, but they were still keeping up with their other inspections that were mentioned in the previous slide. Next slide, please. The picture in the slide is of L38, our new lift station and maintenance area out in Mound. This is the pump room down there. The staff is chatting. In 2014, ISBU began utilizing the new work order and asset management system known as WAM. And as you can see, ISBU completed 3,100 work orders in 2014. In 2020, ISBU completed approximately 17,000 work orders, which is quite an improvement from the 2014 start. Of those 17,000 work orders, 15,500 were scheduled preventative maintenance, or PMs, and only 1,500 were reactive corrective maintenance, or CMs. Approximately comes out to about a 90% completed work orders were PMs, which is above the industry standard of goal of 60 to 80%, according to the author of the Maintenance and Planning Scheduling Handbook, Doc Palmer. The makeup of the ISBU area crews in 2020 is 3 crews of 18 service workers that maintain the 60+ lift stations, totaling 197 pumps and 220 metering stations. The 3 area crews are separate from the inspection CCTV crew and the Vector crew, which is the pipe cleaning lift station crew. Next slide, please. A small diameter pipe cleaning program began in 2020. The program is set up as a 5-year rotating program, which means staff will be re-cleaning once every 5th year. The small diameter pipe cleaning program rotation is based on the League of Minnesota Cities sewer cleaning guidance for municipalities. The Sweet Street Maintenance Program is ISBU's maintenance hole odor control program. Sweet Streets are carbon odor control units that fit inside the maintenance hole just beneath the cover. This is a program where staff changes out the carbon on an annual basis. However, if the Sweet Streets, we receive odor complaints from the Sweet Streets, staff will respond on a complaint-driven basis also. ISBU has also purchased and installed some more efficient maintenance-level carbon units in structures that emit higher H2S. These structures are structures that had required frequent Sweet Street media changeouts, and the new carbon units are reducing our visits and carbon changeouts and are working quite well at this time. Next slide, please. This picture is of one SP200 from 2 seasons ago. ISBU and wastewater planning and capital project delivery work collaboratively on determining when to utilize contract cleaning services. The rule of thumb is when the pipe size, depth, and flow exceed in-house cleaning abilities, the business units work together on determining critical areas to be cleaned. The determination is also based on our consultant's assessment of debris buildup in the pipes. Next slide, please. The picture on this slide is of our old L71 lift station, which is located in Chaska. This picture is a picture of our Vector truck, and they're set up for cleaning a the wet well out at that location. The Vector crew is responsible for lift station wet well cleaning, relief structure inspection and maintenance, siphon and outfall inspection and maintenance. The Vector crew is also responsible for odor media changeouts. And as you can see, in 2020, this crew replaced approximately 370,000 pounds of carbon odor control media. Next slide, please. This picture in this slide is a pump from L77 in Woodbury. That's what we'd call flushable wipes that are supposed to break down in the sanitary sewer system. As you can see, they don't quite break down like they're been sold to do. Councilmember Wolf, this picture was for you. I remember when you requested one. ISBU is supported by the maintenance business units, trades made up of machinists, electricians, and mechanics. The trades completed 3,899 work orders in 2020. Of those work orders, 47% were preventative maintenance. And of that 47%, 379 were designated with project class to improve process and equipment and/or safety. This equates to a 10% improvement in ISBU systems. This also includes our radar upgrade and our flow meters from bubblers or sonar to radar system, which increases flow accuracy, reduces maintenance, and it also includes the addition of what we call our emergency floats in our wet wells of our lift stations. The emergency float starts one pump when the PLC fails and the wet well reaches a high level. PLC failure is when the automated system fails and we no longer can operate automatically of our lift station start stops, and we lose sight of what's going on at the lift station. So that upper level, a high level float maintains a level in the wet well until we can get crews out to respond and turn the pumps on by hand and repair the PLC. That emergency float reduces backups by keeping the wet wells pumped down. And again, it allows for staff time to respond. Next slide, please. I'll turn it back over to Adam.
Yeah, and as I mentioned earlier, Interceptor is defined or identified as condition 4 or worse are entered into the capital improvements program. And with the implementation of the gravity sewer inspection program in 2020, we identified 14 interceptors with condition rating 4 or 5, totaling about $36 million in new work. And this slide, we show 2 of the interceptors. They're near the same location in Shakopee. This site is just to the south and west of the Blue Lake wastewater treatment plant. And you can see in the slide on the right, in one of the indicators of poor condition pipe, which is a loss of a lot of concrete due to corrosion from inside the reinforced concrete pipe. The corrosion, of course, is caused by H2S. And it's so corroded that the steel rebar is visible. Next slide. We look to fix gravity interceptor pipe like the one shown in the previous slide through one of 2 techniques. And shown on the right is a slip lining project where a smaller diameter pipe is installed in the original pipe by pushing and or floating the pipe into place. And this has the advantage of rehabilitating the pipe without the need for temporary conveyance. And the picture on the left is a resin impregnated fiberglass liner that is inserted into a pipe and cured with either heat or light. And most of you are familiar with this construction, as it's commonly referred to as cured in place pipe, or CIPP. And in situations where the pipe conditions are very poor or need to be upsized for capacity reasons, a direct replacement of the pipe or the interceptor is required. Next slide. And I wanted to include a couple of the pictures of our most recent rehabilitation project this past season, when we were completing the lining of the sandstone tunnels near Minnehaha Park in Minneapolis. This is also a form of slip lining, but it shows off how even unusual shapes can be placed in an existing pipe to rehabilitate. This work was not done in the wet, like shown in the previous slide, as the assembly required worker entry. And as you can see, the conditions are very cramped. This work attracted national attention from the consulting community and other large municipalities with deep tunnel sewers that are looking toward rehabilitation of projects in the future. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Bert for the next slide.
Thank you, Adam. On the graph here, you can see how ISBU has increased the use of the WAM work order system. Which you'll also notice in 2019 was an increase in reactive or emergency work orders. That's the area in blue. This is due to the WAM process to create benchmarks. When a manager, planner, scheduler creates a new maintenance program in the asset list, it forces the benchmark creator to create a reactive work order to add the asset to a benchmark and work order. In 2019, ISBU created and implemented 3 large maintenance programs that were launched in 2020. The small diameter pipe cleaning program that I mentioned earlier, and 2020 cctv and the upgrades of lift stations. We also did sewer meter SCADA system communication modems. Sorry about that, stumbled across that one. The 3 program setups forced the created and cancellation of reactive work orders, which are now maintenance benchmarks for the sewer cleaning CCTV programs as we move forward. Staff and management team work together on refining our maintenance PMs to include better and more precise information on PMs, which continues to make the PMs more effective. And as PM work order numbers go up, we continue to see a decline in reactive work orders. By finding deficiencies before they occur, PMs, while increasing in numbers, generally are performed at lower labor cost hours versus corrective maintenance, or CMs, which in turn increases efficiencies and reduces maintenance costs over the life cycle of the asset. Next slide, please. And that concludes our presentation tonight, and Adam and I are available to entertain questions, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Great presentation. And before I hand it over to Wendy here, I must say that the 2 of you must have reoccurring nightmares about hydrogen sulfide gas and disposable wipes and kitchen grease going down the hatch. And I just must keep you up at night all the time. But doing this preventative maintenance is the best way to stay on top of it, I guess. With that, I'll hand it over to Councilmember Wolf, and everybody have a great rest of the meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Questions, comments from council members?
Newly crowned Chair Wolf.
Go ahead, council members, Aaron.
There's something that's been kind of rolling around that I've been thinking about, and I'm just wondering if there have been any completed studies on heat recovery on interceptor or sewer pipes of any kind that could be help to reduce our carbon footprint?
Yeah, Chair,
Go ahead.
Chair Wolf and committee members. Yes, this is something that's not new to us. And I understand that there are studies coming out of both the United States and Canada on heat recovery from sewers. And that includes, you know, sewers or sewer pipe, or I should call it waste pipe within people's homes, to sewer heat recovery in the street. It's something that we're not unfamiliar with. We do heat recovery from our effluent water in the Eagles Point plant, and we've known about this and have utilized it for our benefit. It is something that we've looked at in terms of utilizing it for our benefit in the future. One of the issues that we typically have is, of course, if you're going to do heat recovery, you'll have to have additional facilities. So in the Interceptor system, that would mean that we would have to find a place for those additional facilities. We've been looking to bolster our knowledge about that a little bit. Sometimes we're constrained about what we can and can't do in a right of way. I like to tell people that we have a legislated, fortunately, a legislated permission to be in a right of way, but we always have to abide by each municipality about what we can do and can't do in that right of way. So when it comes to other utilities, be it power or coolant or other types of utilities, that can get problematic. But yeah, it's something that we're not unfamiliar with, and we're looking for opportunities to do it within our system, particularly at our treatment plants and other places. And I hopefully answered your question, Council Member Zarin.
Any other questions? I have one. Your graph that showed how much had been televised, I think it was, started in 2009. What did it look like before that?
Well, Chair Wolf, I wish I could answer that. I've been with the council now for a solid 4 years. I know they did CCTVing before that, but I'm not sure what kind of footage they did. And I might be able to find it on some, if I dig hard enough, but I'm not sure where to look. But that's a very good question. I wish I had a good answer, but I do not.
I don't expect you to dig for it. Thank you. Actually, I started on the council in 2009, and that was kind of an inflection point because we hadn't been keeping up with enough televising to really know the condition of our entire system. It wasn't enough to get through the whole system in a timely manner to know what the condition of the entire system was. And so there was kind of a change at that point to make sure that we were actually checking all of our own stuff in addition to requiring cities to check their stuff as part of the I&I program. So that's why I was wondering what it was like before in numbers. I know it was less, but I don't know how much less. But thank you.
Chair Wolf, again, I wish I could answer that for you, but I know we keep improving and working with wastewater plant capital delivery. The teamwork we have is really working out really well for ISBU and the council.
I really appreciate that. I mean, everything that we have asked of staff over the years, you guys do, and you do a great job of responding to the needs. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions, comments? Then we would move on to the next agenda item, which would be chloride impacts with Deborah Manning.
Thank you, Madam Chair and council members. Thank you for the opportunity to talk with you today. In this presentation, I will cover chloride impacts to surface water bodies, groundwater, and wastewater treatment plants, including reuse. Again, my name is Deborah Manning. I am the Assistant Manager in Plant Engineering and Wastewater Planning and Capital Project Delivery. And first I want to say, what is chloride? Chloride is the anion Cl-. It forms when chlorine gains an electron, and it combines with other elements to form salts, such as sodium chloride, which is table salt. And salts are commonly used as road salt and to regenerate water softeners. Chloride forms different kinds of salts, and they dissolve very easily in water. And once in water, the chloride doesn't break down or go away. Chloride persists, and at high enough concentrations, it's harmful, directly harmful to aquatic life, and it disrupts a process in lakes called turnover, which leads to other harmful impacts. So at the conclusion of this presentation, I hope I will have demonstrated that the time to start working together to manage chloride is now. Next slide, please. At the chloride level found in many surface waters across the state, aquatic animals are already being impacted. Here are some specific species that are impacted by high chloride concentrations. Some of these animals also form the basis of the food chain that supports other animals that make Minnesota a great place to live. Next slide, please. The three great rivers in our region, the Mississippi, the Minnesota, and the St. Croix, are telling the same story. We are headed in the wrong direction with chloride. The red arrows on the figure on the left indicate that the chloride concentration in each of the rivers is increasing. No river shows a decreasing trend. The monitoring station on the Minnesota River at Fort Snelling showed no discernible trend. Looking at the figure on the right, showing the Mississippi River at Gray Cloud Island, downstream of Minneapolis, St. Paul, and the Metro plant, we see a 50% increase in chloride concentration in the river since 1985. Next slide, please. The chloride situation in rivers and streams has gotten the attention of MPCA. The MPCA has identified chloride-impaired rivers and streams in the Twin Cities metro area. Impaired means that the water in that stream or lake or river is not healthy for aquatic life because of chloride. Red dots and lines on the map indicate impaired lakes and streams. Orange dots and lines indicate lakes and streams that are at high risk of becoming impaired. And blue dots and streams are either not impaired or not assessed. Our lakes and streams are becoming poisoned with chloride. Next slide, please. Unfortunately, chloride concentrations are also increasing in groundwater, especially shallow groundwater. The dots on this slide are wells with different chloride concentrations. So blue dots have chloride concentrations less than or equal to 5 milligrams per liter, and red dots represent wells with chloride concentrations greater than 250 milligrams per liter. For perspective, a chloride concentration of greater than 250 milligrams per liter exceeds the national secondary drinking water standard for chloride, which is set because that level of salt leaves a salty taste in the drinking water and can also be a problem for people with certain health conditions. So we're poisoning our wells with chloride as well. Next slide, please. MPCA set a chloride standard for receiving water bodies to which wastewater treatment plants discharge. The MPCA first identified impaired water bodies to which plants discharge. Then it looked at the reasonable potential for the discharge from each treatment plant to cause the chloride concentration in the receiving water body to exceed the chronic, acute, or final acute water quality-based limits in those receiving bodies. And those chronic, acute, and final acute standard levels are shown on the slide. If there is reasonable potential for the treatment plant's discharge to cause the water body to exceed one of the standards, the wastewater treatment plant is shown as an orange box on the map. In these cases, MPCA proceeds with including a discharge permit limit for chloride in the plant's discharge permit. However, MPCA has historically taken the approach of working with treatment plants to develop chloride source reduction programs rather than implementing new chloride reduction treatment processes due to the high cost of these processes. Fortunately for MCES, our wastewater treatment plants discharge to large rivers that are not impaired for chloride. And even though the chloride concentration in the 3 large metro area rivers is increasing, the concentrations aren't yet at the level at which we face a regulatory requirement to reduce chloride in our effluent. But even though this is the case, we aren't ignoring the chloride issue. We are preparing to manage chloride in ways that make sense. Next slide, please. Managing chloride has significant challenges because chloride does not break down. The best treatment does is just separate the chloride from the rest of the water. The technology to do this, typically reverse osmosis, would be a totally new treatment process at MCS's wastewater treatment plants. And it would be, frankly, technically infeasible for our large plants. That's because it produces a reject water in which the chloride is concentrated, so it's a brine, for which there is no feasible disposal option in the Midwest. Given all this, controlling chloride at the source is the best option. Next slide, please. So what are the sources of chloride to wastewater treatment plants? This pie chart shows a typical wastewater treatment plant effluent in Minnesota. 49%, the deep blue part of the pie, is from household water softening. 16%, the light blue part, is from commercial water softening. And 22%, that kind of yellowish part, is from industry, a large part of which is industrial water softening. So an estimated 87% of the chloride coming to a wastewater treatment plant is mostly from water softening. How does the type of water softening used in households, commercial entities, and industries result in chloride? These sectors use a softening technology called ion exchange, and ion exchange softeners have to be recharged on a regular basis, and salt is used to recharge the softener. And the salt eventually comes off of the softener and into our wastewater as the sites in the ion exchange softener get used up. Next slide, please. Despite the chloride entering MCS's wastewater treatment plants from upstream sources, and despite that amount is tending to increase, we don't foresee chloride limits in our discharge permits from our wastewater treatment plants in the foreseeable future. This graph shows how close each plant is to reaching a chloride effluent concentration that would trigger a discharge limit. The vertical axis on the left of the figure is the percent of effluent concentration that would trigger an effluent limit. The horizontal axis on the bottom of the figure shows each treatment plant except for Rogers, and I'll talk about Rogers on the next slide. So if we take the bar for the Metro plant as an example, one over to the left, the blue bar is the max day chloride effluent concentration from each plant, the blue part of the bar. If Metro's effluent chloride concentration were at the 100% level, it would be at the concentration that would trigger a discharge limit for chloride. This trigger is called the reasonable potential trigger, or RP trigger. Currently, the Metro plant's effluent concentration is at 50% of that reasonable potential trigger. So the chloride concentration would have to double before an effluent chloride limit would be imposed. The Blue Lake wastewater treatment plant is closest to the effluent chloride limit trigger it's 60% of that trigger point. Other plants are below the 50% level. That's why we say that the effluent chloride limits for effluent chloride limits for MCS treatment plants are not anticipated in the foreseeable future. Next slide, please. The Rogers wastewater treatment plant does not have an effluent chloride permit limit, but it does have an intervention limit and requirements to develop and implement a chloride management plan. If the intervention limit is exceeded, MCS must take action and must intervene. And those actions are defined in the permit. However, exceeding the intervention limit is not a permit exceedance. MCS staff negotiated this permit with MPCA to allow time to reduce chloride without having a permit violation. Ultimately, the plan for chloride compliance in the northwest area of the region is to implement the chloride source reduction plan mentioned in the permit and to replace the Rogers wastewater plant with a new plant that will discharge to the Crow River, which is a larger water body than the water body the Rogers plant currently discharges to, and so the Crow River can absorb more chloride. Next slide, please. Thank you. Chloride impacts MCS's ability to provide reclaimed water to customers. Wastewater reuse would involve MCS taking water discharged from one of our treatment plants, treating it to a higher level, and providing that water, called reclaimed water, to a user. The reclaimed water produced may have to be treated further by the user for the user's particular purpose. Chloride comes into the wastewater reuse picture depending on the reclaimed water user's needs. This figure shows how chloride affects two of the most common reclaimed water uses, cooling water and irrigation. The maximum chloride concentration in reclaimed water suitable for industrial cooling ranges from 100 to 500 milligrams per liter, depending on the type of cooling. The maximum chloride concentration in reclaimed water that has no restriction for irrigation is 100 milligrams per liter. The blue bars in this figure show the average day chloride concentration in the effluent from MCS's treatment plants. The effluent chloride concentration for all MCS plants is above 100 milligrams per liter, so it would be above what would be suitable for irrigation without restrictions. And some plants discharge above 500 milligrams per liter. So again, cooling water need a chloride level not to exceed either between 100 and 500 milligrams per liter. And so that becomes an issue for cooling. The cost of treatment to reduce chloride concentration in reclaimed water is very high, and the user would have to bear that cost. This is it makes reclaimed water at this point fairly cost prohibitive. This is a concern for some communities in the region and to MCS, as we are interested in supporting the economic prosperity of all communities in the region, including those with water supply challenges that are looking for alternatives, such as reclaimed water, wastewater reuse, to help them supply non-potable water. Next slide, please. So MCS sees two possible approaches to managing chloride at our wastewater treatment plants in the future. We could treat to reduce chloride at our plants. This is the end of the pipe approach. This treatment is currently not feasible, as I've mentioned, from a cost or technology perspective. And even if it were, the chloride reduction process results in a concentrated brine, for which there currently is no feasible disposal option. The other approach is for MCS and the region's communities, watersheds, and industries to work together to reduce chloride at the source. For other water challenges, such as phosphorus, mercury, and infiltration and inflow, we've successfully taken this approach and had excellent results. MCES is pursuing the second approach, source control. We formed an internal chloride team that's been preparing information for developing the 2050 Water Resources Policy Plan, and which will have a section on chloride and chloride management. We are looking to the Environment Committee and that advisory group for the policy plan to help us set some strategy for chloride reduction. Ultimately, we will draw on the region's success with other source control initiatives to collaborate with the region's communities, watersheds, and industries to reduce chloride at the source. Next slide, please. I've mentioned that we formed an internal team, and the team's charter includes some outcomes, which include to prepare MCES to lead in building understanding about chloride issues and develop chloride reduction strategies by collaborating with regional customers and stakeholders, and to prepare for the chloride section of the 2050 Water Resources Policy Plan. And finally, to resolve how to address requests from communities and industries about MCES receiving salty discharges. Next slide, please. To date, the internal team has developed details about chloride reduction concepts at our wastewater treatment plants and by source control, and costs for those concepts. The source control alternatives we've explored include water softener improvements and municipal softening alternatives. Municipal softening involves water treatment plants installing processes that don't result in a chloride load to wastewater treatment plants. MCES is collaborating with the City of Robbinsdale on a study as they install municipal softening. And so we're looking at before and after that plant goes online, what the impact is on chloride in our wastewater. We're also collaborating with the City of Rosemont on ways that we can overcome chloride challenges related to wastewater reuse. Finally, we are exploring whether there are ways we can work with communities and watershed organizations to address chloride in surface water. Next slide, please. In conclusion, chloride is found in commonly used products such as table salt and road salt. It dissolves very easily in water. And once in the environment, chloride does not break down and is toxic to aquatic life and disrupts normal lake processes such as turnover. Chloride concentrations are steadily increasing in metro area rivers, streams, lakes, and shallow groundwater. And because of the increasing trends and negative impact on aquatic life, the MPCA set water quality standards for chloride. Wastewater treatment plants are conduits for, we're not sources of chloride, so source reduction is the best option for managing chloride. Chloride effluent limits in MCES's wastewater treatment plant discharge permits are not anticipated in the foreseeable future. However, the Rogers plant discharge permit includes an intervention limit and a requirement for a chloride reduction plan. Chloride is also very challenging for wastewater reuse. MCES is getting ahead of the chloride issue because reducing chloride at our wastewater treatment plants would be technically very challenging, extremely expensive, and would result in a concentrated brine for which there is no feasible disposal option. Source reduction would involve partnerships with local water providers. And MCES is preparing for stakeholder engagement with these potential partners. Chloride will be one of the issues addressed in the 2050 Water Resources Policy Plan, and we anticipate outreach to stakeholder groups about that. Next slide, please. For the next steps, the chloride team is finalizing the results and reviewing the results and recommendations with ES leadership. The team anticipates presenting final results to the Environment Committee after the internal review, and then the results would be available for the policy plan team to use. MCS understands that chloride impacts all water sectors, that chloride management is challenging, expensive, and pushes the limits of technology, and that we need to work together with customers and other stakeholders. We've been applying staff and financial resources to the issue and collaborating to develop solutions, drawing on past experiences, solving costly and complex water challenges. The time to work together to manage chloride is now. That completes my presentation. I would be happy to respond to comments or questions.
Thank you, Ms. Manning. Are there any questions or comments? Oh, Susan, I see you have your hand up on.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Deborah, thank you so much for this presentation. It's excellent. As distressing as it is to think of the impact that chloride is having, it's good to know that MCES is really focused on this and working hard. I'm curious as to whether or not there are other regions of the country that have tackled this that might provide some guidance. And I'm also interested in industries that already recognize the challenges that are faced with chloride in their products, et cetera. And I really I'm anxious as a consumer, user of water and of products that may be part of the problem, of knowing what I can do to make whatever difference I can make in my personal life. So any thoughts on any of that? Thank you.
Okay, I think there are 3 questions in there, and I usually can remember 2 things, and 3 things are a challenge. So if I don't get to all 3, let me know. The first was any other area of the country addressing chloride. And I think the best example, especially for us in the Midwest, is the Madison wastewater district. They discharge from their wastewater plant to a small stream that's impaired for chloride. And so they've been on the chloride issue for quite some time. We actually, with that internal chloride team, have relied a lot on their work and on their conclusions. They did an extensive alternatives analysis and cost estimate. We've had Zoom-based meetings with them, et cetera. And we really have appreciated the work that they've done and incorporated it in our work as it's appropriate. And they also found that really the key problem, the chief problem, is disposal of whatever. If you're treating it, they're trying to reduce the chloride out of treatment plant, you wind up with this brine, and the disposal is just a problem. They found no feasible disposal option. So they have turned to source reduction and are working through that process. I think your second question was about industries. And we recently, the industrial waste program, started monitoring for chloride. In terms of our permitted users, so that we could get a handle on industrial sources. We don't have, as I mentioned, we don't have a permit limit. So we can't, institute some sort of a limit on our industrial users for chloride, but we are working with them. And in fact, one of our thoughts is to work with MinTap on chloride reduction grants or programs or whatever for industries, because they are, the salt they use is a cost to them. If they can reduce that, great. So more on that as the team wraps up and we come back to the Environment Committee. The third was your question about what individuals can do. And what we have found, both, looking externally and internally, is that those of us with water softeners generally either, set it and forget it. don't realize that some of the older water softeners regenerate on a timer basis, whether or not that regeneration is needed. That generates too much salt. Switching to a demand-based softener would decrease that salt, or just simply optimizing the water softener. Does the softening level need to be at where the softener is set? So individuals can do that sort of check if you have a water softener. I think I answered your questions. If I didn't, let me know. Or if I can expound, let me know.
Madam Chair, Deborah, you did. Thank you very much. I really look forward to whatever it is you bring back to us. This is great.
Thank you. I appreciate the ideas about the water softener. I don't have one, but I know that that is an issue for people. You get one and you just sort of, as long as it's not broken, you just keep buying the salt and throwing it in there and not thinking about that. Just like any other technology, things can change over time, and you can ultimately save money by having a more modern softener because it doesn't take nearly as much salt. Phil, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Wolf. Yeah, I just had some comments. I kind of brought this up at an environment meeting, but when I went on the clean water tour of the state, we looked at Pipestone and won some awards where they did central softening, and they also went to every house on that and offered either remove the softener or if they wanted to keep them, like changing them. And that was some of the observations where some of these were turned up to the maximum. And just in a few months period, they were really getting great results where the chloride was less than half of what they started on with it. So I do see like that century softening really being something to look at, and maybe working with our city partners to see if that could work, starting with our new plants. And the other thing is we have the program like where we try to reduce water, and we try to get through incentives people to get rid of the 5-gallon toilets. And I think if we had that type of program with the water softeners, with education, and say maybe you don't even need one, like Chair Wolf doesn't have one, or go to water conditioning rather than water softening, or so those can all make big differences in education and being on demand rather than timer. So I think the education piece is really important with people out there, because some people just aren't aware of it at all. And then I also liked Miss Manning, where you talked about like the industries too, because like some of our best programs are like the mercury one, where we're doing point source programs where the dentists are taking the mercury out right at the source. And if we could get industries to look at that individually, where it doesn't even go into the demand and they're able to either reduce or take it out at the beginning, I think that would be a huge thing as well for us. So really great, timely presentation, and learned a lot. And thank you for bringing this up. But I know like Clean Water Council is looking at policy, and this is one of the things that we're studying to go on there. So I think that'd be a good partner to kind of work with the Clean Water Council to look at a policy on this one and see if we can work together on this issue. Would be good too. Thank you. I'm complete.
And having a statewide program would probably be a great opportunity with the PCA or somebody to work on updating people's water softener systems. I don't want softened water. I like my hard water. I've always had it, but not everybody feels that way. But yeah, I mean, since it is an issue all across the state, trying to do something on a statewide level to educate people and work towards a solution seemed to be a great opportunity.
Madam Chair and council members, if I might address that. There is a water softening association, and one of the recommendations, again, that we hope coming out of the internal team is to be working with that water softening association. We don't necessarily want to say, softeners are a bad thing, et cetera. We just think there's room to optimize and upgrade, and how can we be part of that? So I wanted to add that as well, and working with that statewide group. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And I wasn't trying to suggest that water softeners were bad either. It's just not my thing. Any other questions or comments?
Councilmember Wolf or Chair Wolf.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to say I do my part. So when we make homemade ice cream, we use a frozen bucket instead of, dumping the salt in there. So we've done our part in the Zirin household anyway to reduce the chlorides in the waste stream by making our homemade ice cream without salt. Just wanted to put that out there.
Thank you.
Councilmember Zirin, I'll have to come over and check the results of the ice cream there. So let me know when you have the next batch there. I'll inspect it.
I was gonna say, when we start meeting in person, maybe you can bring the ice cream and I'll bring warm cookies and we can have a nice snack at our meeting.
I'm in.
Thank you. And thank you, Ms. Manning. That was an excellent
Thank you.
presentation.
Thank you.
So next up is General Manager report.
Yay, my technology's working. I'm on the verge of getting a new computer, so I have a swelling battery, so my computer's coming apart at the seams. It's kind of scary, but it's still working, so knock on wood. I actually don't have a report this evening. I think this is a good opportunity for everybody to get out and catch the last bit of sunlight before the early sunrise or sunset happens.
Thank you. And thank you, everybody, for a great meeting. There being no further business to come before us, we are adjourned.
Good night, everybody.
Good night. Enjoy the evening.
Thank you, Chair Wolf.